The Canadian government isn't just failing to stop crime, it's been absorbed by it. Criminal organizations are not only operating openly within Canada, they've embedded themselves into the very institutions meant to keep them in check. And the consequences for ordinary Canadians are staggering. Take, for instance, the way organized crime inflates government spending. It's not just corruption, it's a straight-up racket. The Criminal Intelligence Service of Canada reports that organized crime drives up government contract costs by 50%. In Montreal, a whistleblower exposed that the mafia controlled 80% of road contracts. Yet the city's infrastructure remains in a constant state of decay despite massive budgets. This isn't incompetence, it's by design. Compromised officials funnel taxpayer money into construction companies controlled by organized crime, creating an endless cycle of half-finished projects with no incentive to complete them. If the work actually got done, the money would stop flowing. Meanwhile, Canadians now pay more in taxes than they do for food, shelter, and clothing combined, only to see their hard-earned money disappear into a system built to serve criminals, not citizens. The grip of criminal networks is so tight that law enforcement is often too scared to even intervene. In British Columbia, organized crime ran casino loan shark operations so openly that they had designated parking spots. Authorities admitted they even feared stepping in. In Quebec, an inquiry found that organized crime had become untouchable, wielding control over government projects through intimidation, racketeering, and prostitution rings. Even Canada's intelligence agencies aren't immune. Cameron Ortiz, a former RCMP intelligence director, was caught tipping off money launderers while having access to top-secret Five Eyes intelligence. His case received little media coverage thanks to publication bans ensuring that Canadians remained unaware of just how deep the rot runs. And it runs deep. Criminals have even infiltrated government ID systems. Service Ontario offices were caught issuing fraudulent vehicle registrations with employees directly linked to a massive auto theft ring. They weren't just stealing cars, they were legitimizing stolen vehicles from inside the system. If organized crime has access to government official IDs, how many other critical documents have been compromised? Then there's the horrifying reality of Canada's missing persons crisis. While the official homicide rate in Canada remains low, the country's missing persons numbers are off the charts. British Columbia alone has a missing persons rate of 273 per 100,000 people, compared to just 8 per 100,000 in California. This means there is roughly 35 times more missing people per capita in BC than California. Why is this the case? Because if murders are reclassified as self-inflicted deaths or disappearances, then our government can continue to pretend that there isn't a problem. In which case, it might be a good time to mention that my mental health has never been better. Because even billionaires aren't safe. When Barry and Honey Sherman were murdered, police initially labeled it a domestic event, despite overwhelming evidence of a staged crime scene. In other words, Canada has reached a point where you can kill billionaires and the government will help you cover it up. The Canadian government is no longer just incompetent, it's a direct threat to the people it claims to represent. As Stephen Punwasi from Better Dwelling has exposed, corruption, crime, and government complicity aren't just incidental, they are structural. Canadians aren't merely being taxed into poverty, they're being ruled by a political class that is indistinguishable from criminals.